In this video, we will explore two powerful LINQ extension methods, AsEnumerable and AsQueryable. We will delve into the differences between the two, their purposes, return types, and when to use each method. Before watching this video, please make sure you already watched the other video about generic and non-generic collections. It's important to understand the difference between both collection types, so that you can understand this video easier. So, let's get started. I will start with the first method, AsEnumerable. To understand this method, we have to understand the structure of a LINQ query. A LINQ query consists in general of two main parts. The sequence or the collection that contains the elements, such as an array, list, data table, dictionary, etc. And the extension methods that operate on the sequence, such as select, where, group by, order by, etc. To write a LINQ query using method syntax, for example, we first set the sequence. After that we use the methods we need after each other. However, we can't always use the methods directly after the sequence. It depends on the type of the sequence we have. The sequence could be one of two types. Either generic collection, such as a list of string, or non-generic collection, such as a data table. Let's start with generic collection. If we have a generic collection, we can directly use the LINQ methods on it. There is no need to use anything between the sequence and the methods. For example, the following query to filter a list and to return only the strings that start with letter F. This query is correct. Let's now check non-generic collection. For example, this query to return only the rows, where the column first name is equal to Lara. This query is not correct. So, we cannot use the methods directly after the sequence, because it's non-generic collection. Let's understand why we cannot use the methods directly here. The LINQ extension methods can be only used for collections that implement IEnumerable interface. All generic collections implement IEnumerable interface, therefore we can directly use the methods after the sequence. However, not all non-generic collections implement IEnumerable interface, such as the data table class. Therefore we cannot use the methods directly. We first have to convert the sequence to enumerable collection. This is where the AsEnumerable method comes into play. So, we can use AsEnumerable method to convert the collection to enumerable. After that we can use the extension methods. To make this query correct, we have to add AsEnumerable method in this way. Now the query is correct, because the data table is converted to enumerable collection. The same can be also done for generic collections. For example, this query is also correct. So, here the AsEnumerable method is optional and we don't have to use it, but we can use it. Let's summarize the points. To write a LINQ query, we first have to check the collection we want to query. If the collection is generic, we can either use AsEnumerable method or not. The reason is that generic collections implement IEnumerable interface, therefore there is no need to use the method. But using it is also correct and has no negative effects on the query. If the collection is non-generic, we have to check if the collection implements IEnumerable interface. If it implements IEnumerable, we also can use the AsEnumerable method, but we also don't have to do that. So, it's the same like generic collections. But in case the non-generic collection doesn't implement IEnumerable interface, we have to use AsEnumerable method. This means, AsEnumerable method is used to convert a collection or sequence to its enumerable form. Once the collection is converted to its enumerable form, the LINQ extension methods can be used on it. Let's now see how to check if a collection implements IEnumerable interface. The best way to do that is using the Microsoft documentation. Let's first check the generic collections. For that you only have to search for system.collections.generic. You will see here under interfaces, which interfaces does this namespace implements. As you can see, we have IEnumerable interface here. This means, all these classes under generic collections implement IEnumerable interface. For example, list class is a generic collection and it implements the IEnumerable interface. This means, AsEnumerable method is optional and must not be used to query lists. Let's check another one, data table for example. Data table is non-generic collection. As you can see, there is no IEnumerable interface here. This means, we have to use AsEnumerable method if we want to write a LINQ query for a data table. Let's check another one, array class. This is also a non-generic collection. But this collection implements IEnumerable. This means, AsEnumerable method is optional. And so on. You can check any data type you may have, if you need to use AsEnumerable method or not. That's all about AsEnumerable method. Let's now move on to the next method, AsQueryable. This method is used to convert an IEnumerable of T sequence to its queryable form. It allows you to apply LINQ operators and compose queries using the full power of the LINQ provider, such as LINQ to SQL or LINQ to entities. This means, we should have an IEnumerable sequence, so that we can use AsQueryable method. This also means, that we can use the method on generic collections, because these implement IEnumerable interface. Or on non-generic collections, which implement IEnumerable interface. An example of generic collection is a list of string. Here is the query, which is similar to the previous example using AsEnumerable method. And an example of non-generic collection, which implements IEnumerable interface is an integer array. Arrays are non-generic collections, but they implement IEnumerable interface. So, here we can also use AsQueryable method. Suppose we need to use the method for a data table. As you know, data table is non-generic collection and it doesn't implement IEnumerable interface. How can we use AsQueryable method for a data table? We can do that in this way. We first have to convert the data table to enumerable collection. This can be done using AsEnumerable method. After that we can use the AsQueryable method. For example, this query. In this way we can use AsQueryable method for non-generic collections, which don't implement IEnumerable interface. Normally we don't do that for data tables, but this was only an example to show you how to use AsQueryable for such kind of collections. That's all about AsQueryable method. Let's now summarize the differences between both methods, and when to use each method. I will start with AsEnumerable method. This converts a data source into an IEnumerable of T type. Allows LINQ operations on non-generic collections. Suitable for in-memory collections or local data. Works with LINQ to objects. For example, it can be used to query lists, arrays, data tables, XML, dictionary, etc. Performs filtering, sorting, and projection on the client side. Let's now check the second method, AsQueryable. This method converts a data source into an IEqueryable of T type. Allows you to perform LINQ operations on non-generic collections, but it also extends this capability to LINQ providers such as databases. It enables you to write queries that can be translated and executed on the server side, leveraging the optimizations and capabilities of the underlying data source. Suitable for querying a database or remote data source. Or in other words, for out-of-memory data, such as a databases. Works with LINQ to entities or LINQ to SQL. Performs filtering, sorting, and projection on the server side. Now that we understand the differences between AsEnumerable and AsQueryable, you might wonder when to use each method. Use AsEnumerable when you want to perform LINQ operations on non-generic collections like arrays, data table, or dataset. Use AsQueryable when you want to leverage the full power of the LINQ provider, and perform advanced query operations supported by the provider. This will be especially used for databases. That's all you have to know about both methods.